Council of Central Bank Governors, and the conversation will be about the probability of having a single currency and how to integrate the region more economically, look more like the EU, or go back to what it was around 64, 65, 66 when there was a shilling that would operate across the country. And later, to be confirmed by the KICC team, Dr. Kinwumi Adesanya, who is the president of the African Development Bank Group. And also, there are parliamentary committee meetings going on, so we shall be keeping tabs on that. Now, from a straight conversation from yesterday, we know that at 11 a.m., Kenya Police FC and FC Leopards will be playing the final 30 minutes of the Mozartbet Cup semi-final. And the procedure is 30 minutes to be played from where the match stopped, and Kenya Police leading by a goal to 0. And there is also going to be, after that, a Man of the Match award. This is whether any team shows up or not. So we'll be keeping our eyes on that. And we also expect to have later a conversation about age grade tennis development, knowing that most of Kenya's tennis top players, especially on the women's side now, are all under the age of 23. So how do you develop these players and make sure that they can perform at the elite level? So we hope to speak to Rosemary Owino and Stacey Yego, who is part of Kenya's team setup. But we start our conversation with golf. And on Friday, that is 3 days ago, the Kenya Golf Union had their annual general meeting, and they elected a new board. And the chairman, who was elected unopposed, is here with us in studio. David Ndongo takes over from Philip Ochola. David, welcome. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And, you know, something that, you know, people would see going by what has been put out is just to put the clarity about Golf Kenya, which is ideally the umbrella body as per the Sports Act, and how we would see the KGU and the Kenya Ladies Golf Union from that perspective.
Great, and thank you for having me in studio. And that is definitely the question that is in the minds of a lot of golfers and golf enthusiasts. And in summary, I would put it this way. Kenya Golf Union has been the governing body for golf since 1928, when the body was formed. So KGU is now 96 years old. A few years later, in 1937, the Kenya Ladies Golf Union was formed. And so the sport has been governed by those two unions, one governing the men's game and the other one governing the ladies' game. With the coming in of the Sports Act in 2013, the law requires that every sport is governed by one singular body. And so Kenya Golf Federation was formed, recently renamed Golf Kenya. And so we are already deep into the transition process to ensure that all aspects of the game are brought under Golf Kenya. So beyond the two unions, the Kenya Golf Union and the Kenya Ladies Golf Union, we also have a professionals body, which is a PGK, Professional Golfers of Kenya. We have the Junior Golf Foundation, which is a subsidiary of KGU and KLGU.
Yeah.
And we have a commercial entity that is a subsidiary of Kenya Golf Union called the Kenya Open Golf Limited, which runs the Kenya Open, the Magical Kenya Open, and the Safari Tour.
All right. So David, let's just take a short break so that they can probably just have a quick adjustment of your microphone. And in the meantime, let's take the highlights of that Mozartbet Cup semi-final between KCB and Kariobangi Sharks as we get David's microphone right.
So finali ya kwanza bila shaka ilikuwa ni zamu ya KCB kuweza kulipa kisasi dhidi ya Kariobangi Sharks, uwanja wa Polisi Sako, majira ya saa 6 mchana, kwa kombe la Mozartbet Cup, FKF Cup ukipenda unasema, lakini vikosi vinakuja hapa. Faruk Shikalo bado jukumu lake pale, Michumari James Mazembe anapewa jukumu na Derek Omondi kuweza kutafuta magoli. Mchezaji Danson Chetambe na Masaka anasalia kwenye benchi licha kuweka timu hii kwenye hii nusu finali. Septiano Siwekesa bado anaaminiwa na mwalimu Mwita William Muluya, Julius Masaba na John Makwata, lakini kikubwa kabisa ni mchezaji Ngume hayuko, lakini pale Leon Levitt Otieno pia anapewa jukumu zuri kabisa hapa na mwalimu William Muluya. Hapa ukimwangalia Nyapara Israel Mpaima anakuja vizuri kabisa kuwaweka uwanjani wachezaji wa pande zote mbili, zungumzia Kariobangi Sharks na vijana wa KCB. Bila shaka kama kawaida lazima shughuli yoyote iweze kuipeleka kwa Maulana, hapa akapiga bismillah, mwamuzi akasema ngoma ichezwe. Hii hapa ikawa ndio nafasi ya kwanza kabisa kwa mchezaji Mwita John Makwata, akaingia vizuri kabisa, lakini akawekwa kando, akawekwa akawekwa pembeni, mlinda mlango akaweza kuwahi mpira Makori.
Ndio Faruki Shikalo akajituma zaidi na kuhakikisha kwamba anahudaka na kunyaka ule mpira, wakati John Mark Makwata alikuwa amenyatia kwenye maeneo yake akiwa anapania kuandika goli lake la 4 katika haya mashindano ya Mozartbet, lakini bado hawakukomea hapo, wakaendelea na saka.
Hii ilikuwa nafasi nyingine kwa John Mark Makwata. Unaweza ukasema kwamba labda mpira ulikuja kwenye mguu wake dhaifu, mguu wa kushoto, lakini pia ni mguu ambao ashafunga magoli kadhaa nao ya tap-ins, lakini pasi nzuri kutoka kwa Julius Masaba.
Ndio hapa pia ikawa bado hawajatosheka na wakaendelea tena kusakasaka kuelekea upande wa pili, na hapa kaingia katika mazingira mazuri kabisa jezi namba 21 mgongoni Leon Otieno bila mafanikio, na hapa ndo John Mark Makwata tena akakosa
kitu ambacho moja kwa moja kingewaleta Kariobangi Sharks kuwapatia uongozi, lakini hapo unaweza ukasema kwamba ilikuwa pasi nzuri vile vile kwa mchezaji mwite Leon Levitt Otieno. Tazama tukio jingine hapa, Julius Masaba yeye na mlinda mlango, lakini kikubwa alikuwa anautaka mpira mchezaji hapa mwite John Mark Makwata, lakini Julius Masaba labda alikuwa na ile kusema kama Faruk amezoea, ama tukifika hapa tunampatia Makwata, wacha nijaribu shuti la moja kwa moja.
Ndio alifanya kuona pupa, angembegea pasi John Mark Makwata labda angeandika ushindi, na angalia hapa ndio Derek Otanga akanyatia, kaingia katika maeneo sahihi wakati sahihi, akitumia guu lake la kulia, kajaza ule mpira ndani ya dakika 77 akaandika goli la kuongoza the KCB.
Goli ambalo bila shaka Derek Otanga unaweza ukasema kwamba labda angepata mpira wa ikabu, ungekuwa labda hajafunga au hata penalti baada ya Bwire Biko kuweza kumshika mkono, lakini hapa utampongeza mchezaji Derek Otanga, alitumia akili, nguvu zake zote, akamwona mlinda mlango amekuja, akauweka ule mpira kimiani kama ulivyosema Makori, dakika 77, lakini ni goli ambalo halikukaa sana. Dakika 2 baadaye makosa ya wao wachezaji wenyewe, mwangalia hapa alivyogusa mpira Filemon Nyakwaka ukaenda moja kwa moja ukaletwa, angalia Fortune Omoto alivyogeuka pasi kwake mchezaji mwite John Mark Makwata, angalia mwisho wa siku Fortune Omoto baada ya shuti lake Makwata kugonga mchuma akaingia na kuweza kusawazisha mambo yakawa 1-1.
Ndio kama hawajamaliza sherehe ya kusherehekea goli lao la dakika 77, dakika 2 baadaye dakika 79 hapa John Mark Makwata anatelezesha ule mpira chini kwa kwenda ukaramba mlingoti wa goli, akawa pia ameingia yule aliyemmegea pasi Fortune Omoto, dakika 76 akajaza ile ngoma ndani na kuandika goli la kukomboa na kusawazisha na kufanya mambo kuwa 1-1, kulazimu mechi kwenda katika hatua ya mikwaju ya matuta, na hapa ndio Faruki Shikalo akaipangua ile ngoma yake kijana Geoffrey Onyango.
Ilikuwa penalti ya kwanza kabisa kicheza Faruk Shikalo, penalti ikafungwa hapa nzuri kabisa na mchezaji Henry Nyango. Penalti ya pili kwa upande wa KCB, na hii ndio penalti ambayo iliweza kuwatoa kwenye shinikizo kabisa. Ukiangalia mlinda mlango alienda sehemu sahihi. Hii ndio penalti ambayo moja kwa moja aliweza kukosa Stanley Wilson Omondi, na hii ndio penalti ambayo iliwapeleka KCB kwenye fainali wakisubiri mshindi wa mchezo ujao. Bila shaka penalti 4 za kufunga vijana wa KCB, 2 za kufunga vijana wa Kariobangi Sharks, na KCB moja kwa moja kwenye finally.
And welcome back. We apologize for the technical hitch that we had as we gave you the highlights of those Mozartbet Cup semi-final 1 that saw KCB win on post-match penalties. We continue the conversation, and this is about deepening golf in the country. And we are with the newly elected Kenya Golf Union chairman, David Dungu. And David was taking us through, the conversation that is there about golf Kenya, which is the overall body under the Sports Act that runs the game, vis-a-vis what we have the Kenya Golf Union, you've got the Kenya Ladies Golf Union, and also the Junior Golf Foundation, plus the Kenya Open Golf Limited, and where the pros come together under the professional golfers of Kenya. So David, you could just take us through that thought again.
Okay, yeah. So these 5 bodies have pretty much been running different aspects of the sport until now. And so we are currently going through the merger or transition process to bring all these bodies under Golf Kenya. That transition takes time because, first of all, Golf Kenya is reworking its constitution. It had the initial constitution under which it was registered. And it was felt that in order to serve the sport better, that constitution needs to be reworked so that it can actually represent all stakeholders sufficiently. And so that's a process that's currently ongoing. The various stakeholders are, as we speak, discussing the constitution. A draft 3 is being prepared that will then be discussed, and eventually the final constitution will be ratified. Besides the constitutional process, there is then also the moving of functions from the current organizations to Golf Kenya. So the international affiliations, functions to do with how to rate golf courses, functions to do with managing handicapping, ensuring that there's a clear process on how clubs affiliate to the new body. So it's an ongoing process, yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the Kenya Golf Union at the moment, and let's look back at the last 1 year, especially when it comes to the men's game. First of all, the Kenya Amateur Golf Championship, the development of it. Last year, I know it was dominated by Michael Karanga, but how have you seen this change?
Two things have happened. One, the KAGC, the Kenya Amateur Golf Championship, has really broadened. This year we have 28 events under that series, which is quite a lot, because that means that on average every 2 weeks you have a championship event happening, and that's spread across over 20 of the courses that we have in the country. And then starting 2022, the rules of amateur status, which are again governed globally in the same way, for the first time allowed amateur golfers to win cash prizes. And Kenya was among the first countries to adopt that, and we immediately put that into the KAGC series. And the impetus that has brought onto talented amateur golfers to come up and compete in these competitions is phenomenal. So as you said, last year we saw Michael Karanga dominate that series, and from his earnings alone last year, he made, I'm trying to remember, but he actually won, out of the 26 events we had last year, he won 13. Okay, so that's half of them, and made a good amount of money. So people are now being able to earn a living. If we look at the byline of the Ministry of Sports, or the brand that they've developed called Talanta Hela,
yes,
that is a good example of someone that is earning from their talent. Yeah.
So, and in this case, we've seen that grow. And just to put it into context, what are the regulations about how much an amateur golfer would earn? Because previously, we know somebody, there would be probably just a reimbursement of costs for participating, or if the prizes are there, there was a cap to it.
Yeah. So that is still in place, whether it's a cash prize or an in-kind prize. The global governing bodies of golf, which is the RNA and the USGA, are the ones that set these limits. And as we speak, the current limit is a maximum of $1,000 in terms of either cash prize, or if it's a non-cash prize, its market value cannot exceed $1,000. And so we then just translate that into, we have an annual exchange rate that we run with. And because we set that earlier this year, when the Kenya shilling, had gone a bit haywire against foreign currencies, we set that at 160,000. That's when the shilling was exchanging for about 165, 168. So that's a maximum value. And the key difference is that for professionals, for example, there's no cap. So a professional can earn $500,000, $1 million per event. Yes.
Also competitions, and this is for regular golfers. I know at the moment we've got the international pairs qualifying series going on. How has this impacted golf, especially across in the clubs across the country? Because some of them are actually being played regionally to make it financially viable.
The international pairs is an international franchise. It's part of a global tournament that pretty much happens in very many countries across the world. And every year it culminates into the World Finals. So this year the World Finals are being held at the end of September at the Canary Islands, which are part of Spain, a beautiful city called Tenerife. Locally, we are running 10 qualifier events. We've just had the 7th event this last weekend at Limuru Country Club. So we have 3 more qualifiers to go. And this has brought a level of excitement amongst what you'd call your regular weekend golfer, because this has no handicap limits. It's pretty much any golfer that has a handicap is able to enter. And we have found that a lot of golfers are enjoying moving around the different qualifier events to play. So it gives them opportunities to play courses that they normally don't play at. It gives them opportunity to meet other people that they normally would not play with. And then those that then will qualify for the World Finals, which will be 3 pairs, that's 6 players, will have the opportunity to go and play in Tenerife. Yeah.
How then is this, is it probably the union working to ensure that this is supported and also such that that opportunity falls within the regular rules of amateur golf and what the international franchise is doing?
Yes, so it's the union's responsibility. The union holds the franchise for Kenya. So we run those events directly, so we just request the clubs to host them, and we are very grateful to all the clubs that have very graciously accepted to host qualifier events. We encourage a lot of either all ladies or mixed pairs. Starting last year, the International Pairs franchise came up with a special category or special motivation to ensure that we have more ladies participating. And I'm very happy to say that out of the 5 pairs that qualified for the finals this last weekend, the leading pair was actually an all-ladies pair, and we had 2 other mixed pairs of the top 5. So it's working out. We are being able to attract more ladies to play. It's also opened up to younger players. Up until last year, there was an age limit of 18. That has now been pushed down to 13. So even parents with teenage children that are playing golf can now pair with them and try to qualify for the international finals. Yeah.
Now let's talk about making sure that the game goes down. One of the things is the game has normally been domiciled in private members clubs. You've got the odd public golf course. I think Golf Park, Naivasha had tried the Barons just at the place known as Delamere's.
Yeah.
What's the work being done around here such that we can have more of this?
That is an extremely pertinent issue around the administration of golf in the country. If you look at how golf grows or how it's grown in other parts of the world, one of the key catalysts is the presence and availability of public golf courses and public golf ranges. So you just mentioned Barons, which was set up in Naivasha. And what we're looking at having is working with county governments and even other private investors who would open up such facilities. So you don't even need to have a full-fledged golf course, not even a 9-hole golf course. All you need is a range, because with that, people are able to just come in, learn how to hold a golf club, learn how to hit a golf ball, and that spirals very quickly, because from then now they want to go to a golf course and start playing, they want to find a club and join. But the more public facilities we have, the easier it becomes to get more people into the game. Just to quickly add on to that, we are working also with the Ministry of Education and the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to actually add golf into the school curriculum. And the schools don't need to have golf courses. Kids just need to go to their football field, to their volleyball field, hold a golf club, hit a ball, and we believe that that is what will bring about the next phase of growth.
Well, very interesting you mentioned that, because one of Kenya's top amateur golfers started off at a place that turns into a football field on a Nord Tuesday afternoon.
Correct.
But then how would the union then help such an institution such that they're able to set up, without doing crazy golf architecture, they're able to set up how it should look like to offer the challenge, the sport that comes with the sport?
So from that perspective, we then provide the technical support. So we've had even private individuals who are looking at setting up, say, a private course, reaching out to the union to understand how do they go about building 3 holes, 6 holes, 9 holes in a way that makes sense. So our input to that is primarily the technical know-how. Not that we have it in-house, but at least we have access to the people who have that expertise. So we have specific people who are golf course architects, both locally and internationally, that we then put in touch with institutions, with investors, to be able to come up with something that makes sense for a new facility.
Well, let's talk about now, some of the two technical aspects of it, coaching and refereeing. First of all, we have seen would be targeted, if I was to speak directly at the Junior Golf Foundation. How have you been working to improve, on the coaching so that you get them young?
So two things around that, around coaching, which works for both the juniors and also the adults. But starting 2021, we got into a program with the US Kids, which is a program that is targeted towards just getting a lot more kids coming to the game. So through the Junior Golf Foundation, we got into an arrangement with US Kids. And one of the things that US Kids does is to specifically train coaches that will be training children. Because how you train a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old is not how you'll train a 25-year-old. So we were able to get initially over 50 individuals just from different clubs trained under the US Kids program on how to train children. The second part is that as a union, we are also now looking to increase the number of certified coaches. There are different levels of recognized and accredited courses for coaches. And we have just, we are on the verge of getting into an arrangement to get about 5 new coaches trained. We're hoping to push it to 10 because there is also an element of the cost, so that we actually have a larger number of accredited coaches. A lot of people who train today, they train because they're skilled, but they don't have the papers that would allow them to say, you know, if they moved from Kenya to Ghana or Kenya to Australia, would they then be able to train? No, but with accreditation, that certificate then allows you to train anywhere.
All right, we'll be coming back to that accreditation process so that we can know how those levels are, and also we shall be talking about what is known as refereeing and the etiquette of the game. David himself, you've been a referee at various tournaments, so you'll be telling us about that. But right now, let's move over to the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where O'Brien Kimani is speaking with the chair of the East Africa Council of Central Bank Governors, James Ali Garang, who's also the governor of the Bank of South Sudan, and this is ahead of the the African Development Bank annual meetings 2024 that Kenya is hosting this week. And one of the conversations that O'Brien will have is, can we have a single currency in the East African community 60 years later? Over to you, O'Brien.
Many thanks, Daniel Wahome. Back in Broadcasting House, you're right. We are here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. It is going to be 5 days of intense negotiations and conversations, and of course, a way forward on how we are going to transform Africa, how we are going to reshape and rethink the future of the African Development Bank, as well as how to reenact the global financial architecture. Those are the 3 things that will take center stage here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. This is the annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group. It is the 59th edition of this meeting, and of course, critical conversations will be taking place here. We're expecting heads of state, central bank governors, as well as regional leaders who will be joining us for this critical meeting. We've been talking about these for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We have so far hosted various keynote people in this conversation. We have talking about the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njogona Ndongo. We have talked to him about this thing, and of course Dr. Chris Kiptoo, who is also the PS for National Treasury. Those are some of the officials that we have discussed about the future and what we should expect out of this meeting. Guess who is joining me on the set? He is the governor of the Bank of South Sudan. And on top of that, he's the chairperson of the East Africa Monetary Affairs Committee. This is the committee that is supposed to drive the quest to have a single currency in the East African community. It has not been a simple journey. It has been a tough journey. This desire was supposed to be achieved last year in 2023, but we missed the boat by the river and we set up another date, and we're talking about 2031. How many years to come? Your guess is as good as mine. We are talking to Dr. James Garang. He's the chairperson of East Africa Monetary Affairs Committee. He's going to explain to us where are we in terms of ensuring that we achieve and realize that dream. And on top of that, how this meeting is critical in driving the intra-Africa trade as well as our integration agenda. Daktari, thank you very much indeed for finding time to be with us here on KBC and of course here in Nairobi.
For welcoming and hosting me, O'Brien.
I want to hear from you. How is this meeting important in the greater scheme of things in East African community?
This meeting, the annual meeting for the African Development Bank, is setting a tone. It's also avenue for the region. And of course, we are not at the platform out. But when we have set a tone here in the region, then we can use that to deliver our coordinated message. You remember that the key issues that are going to be discussed, it revolves around issues to do with reforming global financial architecture. And this is a big deal. It does not stop only with the African Development Bank. There are other big players, the World Bank and the IMF. So this conversation will be carried forward. At home in the EAC region, the conversation also around debt sustainability will be an issue that will be discussed within the context of global financial architecture. Take, for example, we do not do our own debt rating. It's done externally by the IMF, by the International Financial Institution.
We're talking about Standard & Poor's, among many others.
Yeah, so even that relies on external actor to do the rating for the countries. And each of our countries in the region has one way or another detest those ratings because they are unfavorable to us in some ways. So this conversation about global financial debt architecture and also transforming Africa, specifically focusing on the high five that the AfDB has advanced under the leadership of President Adesina, will be high on the agenda during this meeting.
I like the fact that you're bringing in the concept of the rating agencies, and I have just mentioned some of them. You know, we're talking about Standard & Poor's. I know you have worked, you know, in some of these leading multilateral institutions. You've worked with the World Bank. You've worked with the International Monetary Fund. How is it possible for Africa to have its own rating agency?
Possible. It takes time. It needs a push from the region to ensure that we have our own. There's nothing that it's good to have international standards, but it is also good to have one's own, to have something at home. And for the last several years, there has been a time, and it has not gone anywhere. Let me just tell you the example. Yesterday, there was a meeting for the Eastern Africa constituency, which is the constituency within the African Development Bank. And that constituency covers the EAC region. And one of the issues that we want to push and even raise on the floor during the plenary session is this issue of the DSA, the debt sustainability analysis, the way it is designed. We believe that it is more subjective. And it's more subjective, and it has more of a judgment in it. It's not just mechanical, where you do numbers, like you say, 1 + 1 is equal to 2. The DSA is not like that. It's 1 + 1 + something else that gives you the rating. So we find that time and again, you find that most countries are either under debt distress or in the risk of high debt distress. And because of that, a country's access to resources is constrained. So we believe this is something that we will keep pushing, and one day we shall have our own rating, or we shall have more voice at the global financial institution table. Because at the moment, even in the global setting, there are some tables where Africa does not sit on the table.
When you talk about the debt sustainability, and I know it has been a major conversation here in Africa, here in Kenya we're also dealing with it, whereby you find that we are spending almost 40% to 50% of our revenues on debt repayment. And this situation is replicated all over Africa. What do we need to do in a bid to come up with a workable debt sustainability method?
Parameters and the framework that we have in place. One of those is that it says once you reach a certain level, you are considered either in high risk of debt distress or you are already in debt distress. Once the country is in debt distress, you no longer have access to the international financial institution. And sometimes you need that for stabilization purposes. If a country is in a crisis, they need a quick support to stabilize. And once you run to the international market, you cannot have that. So what certain parameters need to be changed. And one of those that we have really thought about is coming up with something along the line of exceptional clause criteria. Let's say Kenya or South Sudan or any country in the region has a debt payment that is due next month. And we know that there's a natural crisis or maybe a calamity that has struck a country and the countries are unable to pay. Is that an intentional on their part or is that an act of nature? Because it is an act of nature, the international financial architecture should find a way to contain and to resolve those instead of punishing a country for something that they have not dreamt about or something that is unforeseen. The global architecture need to take into account something along the line of exceptional clause criteria, such that if there's a crisis and the country is unable to pay, you don't just demote their rating or you don't just say they are in debt distress, and therefore you bar them from the global financial architecture. The same thing also goes with some of these platforms where discussion like this take place. For example, the G20. And for the last few years, we have had something called common framework, where countries are supposed to streamline their policies and ask for debt relief from the debtors. A few countries in Africa have tried that, and it has not succeeded. And we have been talking so much about it since 2020. A number of countries in the region who were supposed to go under this thing called common framework. Until now, they have not succeeded. It's supposed to be like this. You are a country, you have a high debt, and you are requesting the creditors to have a haircut so that you are then able to have a room, a physical space to breathe. That has not taken place. So a platform like this would be the one that can be used to advance those. In the EAC region, let me just bring it home. In March, in April this year, from April 29 to May 3rd, we had the MAC meeting, which is the Monetary Affairs Committee meeting in Juba, to talk about some of these issues and to look at what the region needs. And one of those is the element of debt sustainability. Because when your DISA rating is very low, it's like you are punished. It's like you are condemned.
You're banished from,
you are from the global financial
system.
you can access and you can access and
even if you access, it is at a very premium rate.
Because they would say very premium rate and very, very, very low. Something that you cannot even use to meet your obligation. So it is something that is a pacing more about. Let me just say something. You mentioned Kenya earlier. Kenya has done very well in this regard. You know, in the region, Kenya, in terms of development, there are many indicators where Kenya is ahead of most countries. But even at that, they still have to push harder to the international financial players for them to have a say at the table and for them also to access the fund. So yes, Kenya has been accessing, but pushing harder. But there are others in the region who have been constrained, who are very much struggling because of the DSA. So this topic for the AfDB is timely and it's a topical one because it's going to allow us to have our voice out there.
To sit back, reassess, rethink, and of course restructure the global financial agenda. If you're just joining us, we're having a conversation with the Central Bank Governor of the Bank of South Sudan, and our conversation is taking place here at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, the venue of the annual meetings of the African Development Bank Group, the 59th edition, where we are discussing the issues to be conversed around here. Dr. James, when you look at the numbers, as released by the African Development Bank, they say that the external debt by African countries stands at about $1.2 trillion US. Now, that is massive. And some countries are having challenges, in repaying these debts. Should we also have a conversation during these forums on how to restructure these debts to ensure that you don't put so much repayment burden on developing countries?
O'Brien, this conversation should be had, and it's already happening. It's just that it is happening in a very mute way. Like I said, when the COVID hit in 2020, many countries were unable to provide, to mobilize resources to provide public services. And so a number of things were done. One of those was, from the IMF perspective, there was the provision of rapid credit facility, a quick, short loan with a zero interest rate for a number of years, especially for countries that are low in income. And then also came along the allocation of the SDR. And the SDR gave countries breathing space and reduced the need to push to have hard loans. But in course, when these were phased out, countries went back to the drawing board, and they have gone back to the international market. So when you talk about 1.7 trillion loan to the global community, loans themselves are not bad per se. What is bad about them is how you use them and the repayment schedules that are there. Not all countries in Africa have difficulties repaying, but a good number of them have. So that's why I talk earlier, there's something called common framework. This is a framework that was set up to look at the countries that have a high debt, that are unable to pay, and that should not be allowed to be default. So a number of countries were selected, but the ball did not only fall on the countries that have taken the loans. Even those who gave the loan were also requested to ensure that they provide debt relief, so that then those countries will be in a position to service their debt. So debt services is a big problem, yes, but it's not all the countries. It's a number of countries. And the way to resolve it is to have an agreement with the debt, with creditors, including the Paris Club. Now, for the countries that are able to access the international market, like I said earlier, there's also a cash. If you can access the market today, will you be in a position to pay tomorrow? That's a question that you cannot answer a priori, but something that can also be entertained. And if you are unable to answer tomorrow, what safeguards are in place so that you can then be protected from defaulting? And that's the question that we need to have.
That's the question that we need to start having here. James, I mean, you know, having lived in the Western capital, you know, power capitals, you know, of Washington, are you convinced that the Bretton Woods institution, and I'm talking about the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, are they ready and willing to act on this issue?
Are ready to act, but some of these institutions have major shareholders, and we, the Africans or the African leaders, have to convince those major shareholders.
And the major shareholders, we are talking about the countries like United States,
Union,
Great Britain,
France. Yeah, these are the major shareholders. So for any decision to take place in the boards, in those boards, major shareholders have to agree.
Are we having that conversation? Are we having that conversation with the major shareholders?
In few tables, especially the G20 table, where we have the Nigeria and South Africa, and now the AU is joining. Not all the countries in Africa can get to a table. But
get to that G20 table.
The G20 table. But the G20 table now, we have the few of our big brothers in the region who are on the table. They are the one.
And the G20 table is a group, is a class of developed or major economies, as we like to call them.
That influence decision at the IMF and the World Bank. Unless you convene those, anything you say in the air will not go to the table at the IMF.
I want you to stop at that, because when you look at the G20, the formation of the G20, Africa has 3 slots. You have Nigeria, you have South Africa, and then you have the AU. Do you believe that the 3 tables, I mean the 3 chairs, have enough muscle to move decisions and influence the other 17 members?
We need more. But at the moment, the 3 that we have there, you can always say thanks, but I need more. So in this case, we are very happy when the AU was allowed to join. We know all along Nigeria and South Africa have been pushing very hard, but they can push so much. if you have other smaller brother in the region, west or east or south or north joining, that can also add a voice. You can look at it this way, that the AU is a collective voice. Yes. And that what the AU represents all of us, which is also a plus. But if there's a way to even add more to the table, that we can.
When you look at the African continent, do you see some candidates who qualify to be on the G20 table?
You know, home is always best. If we look at the region, this country where we are today, Kenya has a voice.
Kenya qualifies.
Kenya has the voice. Kenya has the in terms of democracy, in terms of, in so many ways. So Kenya has a voice. Kenya can stand to join. If you look west also, countries like Ghana, they also have the voice.
Ghana.
It's not just how large your economy is. It has also to do with your historical legacy. What have you done for the last few years? In terms of technology. Technology is a big thing nowadays. In terms of your democracy also, are you able to feed your people? So there are a number of factors that are considered for you to come to the table. And most of the countries in the region are trying very, very best to come to the table. But look at it this way. Even if we don't all go there, because it will be hard even to have almost 200 countries sitting on the table. It will be hard. Just like the democracy in Rome, where it was in places like Athena, but when it was expanded, it became so difficult for everyone to sit on the table, and that's why now we have a representative democracy. We elect people to parliament to speak on our behalf. Sometimes they speak on our behalf, sometimes they do not. So, for now, we are contented that AU has been added to the list, but we are telling the international community, open up. We need more.
Are they listening? Are they listening?
Some are listening, some are not. And for those that are not, they are providing other reasons that we need to go around, maybe behind the scene, and discuss why.
Are they genuine reasons? Are they genuine reasons?
Some reasons are not.
Or they're just stumbling blocks. Or they're just stumbling blocks.
Some of them are not. Take for example, it's not a design or it's not an intention of any country not to feed its people. It's the circumstances that allow that to happen sometimes. It's not the intention of any country just to pick up arms and fight. So there are things sometimes that happen to do either with policies that are even perceived to be external, but they are considered as a stumbling block. So some of these reasons are not. Because yesterday, even these countries that are advanced, they were in the same shoe. At some point.
Struggling.
There is this economist from, his name is Jin Shuang. He says that, no, he's
Korean.
Some countries are trying to kick away the ladder. In the 1800s, in the 1900s, in the 20th century, the same policies that they were using, the trade policies, like protecting your infant industries, they were using those to protect their industry so that they grow. And when they become adult, they open their market and they compete internationally. The same countries today, for us, the young countries, not to use the same policies, but just to liberalize and go straight policies where you have pre-entry, pre-exit. And this economist is saying, no, you are kicking away the ladder that you used to climb. Don't do that, because all of us need some preferential treatment for us to be to stand on our own feet. Just like when you are young, somebody in your family, mom or dad, has to hold your hand so that you can take the first step.
And training you to walk.
Some countries are not observing. They were doing the same thing, and we detest. We say no. We say no.
And so, James, from where you sit or from where you stand, I know because of your position as the chairperson of the East Africa Monetary Affairs Committee, I mean, you hold a significant position in the region. How then do we ensure that the deliberations of this meeting, okay, are factored in when it comes to global issues going forward?
Let me just say, Brian, we have many avenues to do that. These many avenues, some of them are political, and then later they become
economic.
They start sometime has political. For example,
Take for example,
for the
meeting of the summits for the EAC. It is the one that decides which country to host the MAC meetings, and it rotates among the countries, the 8 countries now, including the addition of Somalia and the DRC. So because of that, we have the EAC as one avenue in which we can get our message out. Because also in the EAC we have the link also with Washington.
Institution, the IMF and World Bank. But in the same EAC also, we have the avenue of the AU, where we also get our message. Because of the regional blocking, the EAC is one of the advanced regional grouping in the region. We also have the link with SADC and South Africa, who sits on the table in the G20. So these are ways for us to get our messages out. And also individually, in the annual meeting, in the spring meeting,
each of us, these countries in the region, do go to Washington, and they also sit on some tables where we also advance those issues. But at the end of the day, for any major breakthrough to happen within the global financial architecture, political decisions have to be made. And the AU leadership has to push. Because what the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank Governor can say at a given table is not enough. What the AU says, what the head of the state says. Take, for example, when President Ruto went recently to Washington.
Briefly, because we have to end up.
You have seen a big flash news, and some of the things that have happened. Those things happened because he went. Those things happened because he pushed. So while we need economic front, there are other also political front, and in the end they become one.
Very good. Dr. James Garang, thank you very much indeed for joining us here, and of course for giving us your insight on how African voice should be heard at the global level when it comes to issues of debt and reforming the global financial architecture.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Engaging you this morning, Brian.
Very good. Well, we've been talking to Dr. James Alika Garang. He is the chairperson of the East Africa Monetary Affairs Committee at the East African Community. We've been discussing how to elevate the African voice when it comes to issues like reforming the global financial architecture and, of course, the issues of debt sustainability, and then how to embolden the African voice and the issues that should be discussed during this meeting. We are here at the good old Kenyatta International Convention Center. Everything is on set for the official opening of the annual meetings of the African Development Bank. The official opening is happening tomorrow. We're expecting more than 30 heads of states from Africa, and of course some leaders of Bretton Woods institutions like the International Monetary Fund as well as the World Bank. They will be converging here for the next 5 days to discuss critical issues. O'Brien Kimani is my name. I'll be tracking the conversation here, and of course I'll be helping you to understand them and break them down for you. Back to you, Daniel Wahome in Broadcasting House.
Thank you very much, O'Brien Kimani, and with Dr. James Ali Garang, who is the chair of the East African Community, a Council of Central Bank Governors. He's also the governor of the Bank of South Sudan. And remember, at 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., we're going to be live from the KICC, where the first of the session is taking place. We know that there's registration, there are closed-door sessions, and also there's going to be the main opening ceremony for the AfDB Annual Meetings 2024. O'Brien Kimani will be updating us later because he's expected to be speaking with the president of the African Development Bank Group. We'll be telling you about that as it continues. Now, we get back to our conversation around sport, and we're with David, who is the chairman of the Kenya Golf Union, elected last week Friday. And let's take a look at the state of the game. And we were talking about, spoken about some of the technical things, especially when it comes to coaching. And off camera, he says, look, coaching is more like teaching and the things that they would like to see. And this is what they're doing mainly with their Junior Golf Foundation. So, David, let's talk about this area of coaching and how it becomes teaching. We've had, especially those Swahili commentators and those who are in Tanzania, they actually, when we talk about coach here in Kenya, we would say kocha or mkufunzi, but in Tanzania, they use the name mwalimu.
Yes, it is indeed teaching. And like any other kind of teaching and training, it is something that not only requires a subject matter expert who understands the intricacies of the sport, but also an individual that is well skilled in training and sharing that information with the people that they're coaching or they're training. So especially when it comes to children, getting the appropriate type of coach for children is really important. We have focused a lot on also ensuring that we have a good gender balance between male and female coaches, because when you look at sports in general, but in our case for golf, a parent of an 80-year-old girl, for example, who wants their daughter to be trained, may not have the time to go and sit and wait for the coaching session, which might take 2 or 3 hours. They want to go and drop off the child and then pick them up later. If the only people available to coach that 80-year-old girl are male coaches, 2 things are likely to happen. Either the parent will be inconvenienced because then they feel they have to wait for the girl, or they will decide, well, the girl will not go for lessons today, she'll only go when I'm available. But when you have female coaches, then a parent is more comfortable going to leave their 80-year-old girl. And I'm not saying that the male coaches are deviants, but it's just small intricacies of how to work with children. And so that's one of the things through the JGF that we've tried to focus on to make it inclusive and get as many lady coaches as possible. And the ladies also train the men. Yes. Or the boys, and vice versa. But it's just about spreading all the aspects of the game across the board and in different parts of the country as well.
Certification, because there are different levels of coaching. We know if you are to speak to what is very well known, people will talk about Class A, B, C, and professional. How then are you doing, what's the work being done to ensure that certification of coaches to the right level takes place?
As mentioned earlier, that is now one of our key areas of focus. So working very closely with the PGA of South Africa, with the support of the RNA, to get at least 5 to 10 new level 1 coaches, and for the few who are already level 1 certified, move them to level 2. So from a PGA perspective, and the PGA coaching standard is global, so whether you're working PGA of South Africa or PGA of the UK or PGA of America, it is pretty much a similar acceptable standard. And those are the organizations we are working with to ensure that we skill up our coaches to the global level.
All right. Okay, David, we'll be coming back. Let's talk about refereeing, handicapping, and also now making the game attractive to everyone. We know in tough economic times, golf can be an expensive sport. So how do we keep it going and keep everyone active? And also the state of our national teams and the competitions that we need to be looking out for, those that have happened so far and those that are coming up. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll come and wind up this interview.
Any chance I can get some water?
What?
Welcome to Nairobi, Kenya. On behalf of the Government of Kenya and the African Development Bank Group, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all distinguished guests and delegates to the highly anticipated 2024 annual meetings in Nairobi, Kenya. Kenya's desire to host the 2024 annual meeting and the 59th annual meeting of the African Development Bank Group underscores its commitment to advancing regional and continental cooperation towards an inclusive and sustainable development. The Republic of Kenya takes pride in the foresights of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, in singling out contemporary African problems of socio-economic transformation required given the existential threat of climate change. The required reforms of the multilateral development banks to be fit for purpose, scale up resources, and championing for the reforms of the global financial architecture. This is the 59th annual meeting of the African Development Bank Group and also marks 60th anniversary of the African Development Bank. It is thus a celebration. It has a theme, African economic transformation, the African Development Bank Group, the forming of the global financial architecture. It is such an exciting theme at this time in African continent. The annual meetings will provide an unparalleled networking opportunities, facilitating strategic collaboration and partnership with the key decision makers from African Development Bank Group member countries, as well as all shareholders, but also explore feasible solutions for African economies and the transformation agenda. We want to assure you all, our distinguished guests and delegates, that Kenya is fully prepared to host the event, ensuring a seamless experience for everyone. The event will be hosted at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. The historical significance of this convention center is that it hosted the World Bank and International Monetary Fund annual meetings half a century ago. That was in 1973. We look forward to welcoming you to Nairobi for what promises to be a historic chapter in our ongoing partnership with the African Development Bank Group, the African region, and the world at large. So karibu Kenya, welcome to Kenya. Asante sana, thank you very much.
Are you a talented artist? Or are you passionate about a topic you want to discuss? But money can be very hard to find for an upcoming artist. Don't worry, Studio Mashinani has got your back. Sign up on ajira.co.ke to book a session with our music and video producers across the country. Work on your music, jingles, spoken words, and even podcasts to realize your dream. All for free. Studio Mashinani, Radani Talent.
Mizimu imesema atakayekuwa kiongozi ni yule pete itamchagua.
Bahari imechafuka. Mrithi wangu ni yule atakayeniletea vuo la kuoga.
Sasa na hili vuo wachana nalo, wakati wake umepita.
Pete hii ni ishara ya utawala.
Huu uongozi tusimwachie Jasiri.
Kwa nini uongozi usimwende Jasiri? Na wauliza nyinyi, Jasiri ana nini?
Ukiva hakuna atakayekusumbua.
And welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It is a day when we have got the first day of the Africa Development Bank, annual general meetings, 1:30 p.m. KBC will be live on that, and O'Brien Kimani is going to be giving us a second interview. He's going to be giving us a conversation of whether he's going to be speaking with the president of the African Development Bank Group, because we've already had that meeting with Dr. James Ali Garang, the chair of the East African Community Council of Central Bank Governors, who's also the governor of the Bank of South Sudan. So now let's conclude our conversation about the state of game of golf in Kenya, and we've spoken about the coaching and what's required and the certification that is needed. Now, the other one is for you to grow as a golfer and get to compete at the elite level. There is a handicap, how you get handicapped, and that is your skill level test. So David Nungo is the chairman of the Kenya Golf Union. Just take us through the current way of rating golfers, which is the handicapping system.
Okay. Starting 2020, the world moved to what is called the World Handicapping System, WHS, which was designed to get the entire world into a singular manner or singular system for handicapping golfers. Prior to that, we had 6 different handicap systems, all of which were very diverse, very unrelated, and using different formula to arrive at how a player gets handicapped. So majority of the countries in the world, I think there's probably less than 10 now that have not moved to WHS. All the others have moved to WHS. And the whole ethos behind WHS was to simplify how handicapping is done and make it easier for new golfers to come into the game. And so what happens is that once someone begins learning how to play the game, you'll probably get basic coaching, learn how to hold a club, the right grip, the mechanics of the swing, and you feel that you're proficient enough. You play a few games as a non-handicapped player in the company of a handicapped player. And when you're ready to get your handicap, you then submit cards, having played either 6 rounds of 9 holes as a minimum, or 3 rounds of 18 holes. And those rounds must be played in what you'd call tournament conditions, meaning you have followed all the rules of golf. So you're not taking what people call mulligans. You're not hitting like 2 or 3 balls at the same time. You're playing just 1 ball. You're taking the penalties that you need to take if they do come up. And once you submit those cards into the system, through the club that you're getting handicapped at, the handicap committee of that club will then issue you with a new handicap based on the scores that you've returned. So that is as simple as it is. And so every club ideally has a handicap committee that manages that for their members, and those all roll up to the national handicapping committee, which is called the Kenya Unified Handicapping and Course Rating Committee, that runs that for the whole country.
Where do you start? What's the number you start at before you now go down towards 0?
So the highest handicap that a player can get, whether male or female, is 54. And essentially what that means is that in 18 holes of golf, for you to play to your handicap, you will have made 54 errors, for lack of a better word, or you will have played 54 over the handicap, over the par of the course. Yes.
So if it's a par 70, you're playing what, 124?
Correct.
And it comes down.
Then as you get better, it comes down. Yeah.
And that is what now determines entry levels. And this is at competition level. So you indicated 28 Kenya Amateur Golf Championship events this year, and you set a bar as to the entry level. What's the bar that's being given, and what are you seeing with those who are now competing at that?
So different events have different handicap limits, but majority of the KAGC events, you will find that the maximum handicap limit is about 12 or 15. So anybody above that is not eligible to enter. For the high-profile events like the Kenya Amateur Stroke Play and the Kenya Amateur Match Play, you'll find that the handicap limit is about 9. So anybody above handicap 9 cannot participate. Now, once people are playing at that level, you're now beginning to go into what we call the performance and elite level of the game, from which then we run the Africa High Performance program in order to develop elite golfers who are then the candidates who are likely to turn professional within about 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
So let's now talk about, the competitions that then you're also responsible for the national teams, the men's national teams to be specific.
Correct.
The Junior Golf Foundation does the boys and the girls. For the men's national team at the moment, and the selection criteria and the performance from the competitions. Let's start with the Victoria Cup, Kenya versus Uganda. Let's start there.
So we had the last Victoria Cup at the end of January. And for that, it's actually the one event that takes the highest number of players in terms of a team, because we get 10. Most of the other events, we normally only take 4. The selection criteria is fairly transparent and straightforward. So number one, we use the previous year's series, like, if we were doing a selection like in January. So the order of merit from the KAGC series will be a key criteria. We look at the top players depending on the points that they accumulated. We also use the global ranking. So a few years ago, we started getting our amateur players into the global ranking, what is called the World Amateur Golf Ranking. And so depending on the events that the players play, and depending on how they perform in those events, they get allocated world amateur points. So that also becomes a key criteria in ensuring or in determining who makes a national team or not. Now, the fact that you're ranking well in WAGR and in the order of merit doesn't automatically mean you'll be in the team. So you're selected as part of a pool of players to go into camp. And in that camp, depending on your performance, your discipline, your form at that particular time, closer to the event, the national team coach, together with the tournament's director, are the ones who look at how the players have performed in camp and then come up with the final selection of the team.
Right, performance of the team. Let's start with the Victoria Cup.
So this last event, which was hosted by our neighbors Uganda, it was a very tough outing. Having had 6 events from which we had won 4, this was the first time that we came out with a draw. So we shared the points equally with Uganda, but because we were the previous holders of the trophy, we retained the trophy.
So are we going to be having, that was supposed to be the 2023 event.
Correct.
Would Kenya be hosting now the 2024 proper? Because you know it's...
Yes, it's a
alternate.
shared event and it's hosted alternately. The new board will have to make that decision in a very short time because we are almost mid-year. So we'll be communicating the decision on that very soon.
Let's talk about the regional championship, the Region 4.
So we were to have Region 4 actually around this time in Kigali, but the hosts, Rwanda, requested that the event be moved because I think they're preparing for elections or something that they felt was not an ideal time to host the event at this point.
Actually, yes, because I think also their motorsport event has been moved.
Yes.
Yes, so that's understandable.
So we will actually now have 2 regional events happening within 3 weeks of each other in October.
Wow.
So we will have Region 4 happening in Kigali, at the new Kigali Resort course. And also we will have the Africa Amateur Golf Team Championships hosted in Harare, Zimbabwe, again happening in October. So we've started preparing the teams. The fact that they're happening so close to each other, it kind of makes it easy because then it means it will be sort of one round of preparation and pretty much the same team is likely to participate in both events.
Then also we saw this year the introduction of the African Amateur Golf Championship, which is, how would I say, it's a competition that picks the elite golfers from the continent. How did you see this and the impact that it has had on the approach to high performance golf in the country?
The introduction of the Africa Amateur Championship has been amazing. What it has done for golf in Kenya and in Africa is phenomenal. The only downside to it, unfortunately for this year being the inaugural event, is that it happened on the same week as the Magical Kenya Open. So number one, locally, it may not have gotten the prominence that it deserved. And it also forced us to split our players because we had amateur players that were playing at the MKO, we had amateur players that needed to go and play at the championship in South Africa. But that said, it was a very good opportunity. We took 8 male players and 4 female players to the championship in Leopard Creek in South Africa, where they pretty much were up against Africa's best amateurs from 15 different countries. It was very eye-opening. They got opportunities for not only playing against the other good players in the continent, but also for coaching. So they had time with a lot of very high-level coaches to just take a look at their swings and their technical aspects. Yeah.
So looking at it now, what the next thing that everyone should look out for in terms of the sport, such that one, it is demystified, and 2, looking at make it affordable because we're facing real tough economic times at the moment.
Yes, that's it remains a key focus of the union going forward, democratizing the game. As you said, it's amazing that actually out of the top 3 amateurs we have in the country today, we are really pleased to note that they all actually come from humble backgrounds. So an indication that people just need to be given the opportunity. So the discussions we had earlier with regards to public facilities and opening it up in schools where they don't necessarily have to have dedicated golf courses will be a key catalyst for ensuring that we open up the game to anybody out there who has a talent.
Making sure, demystifying the game. I mean, that's the biggest challenge that you always have.
True.
How do we go? I mean, what efforts are being made around this? You know, at least I think the golf park was the first one to break, you know, that mystery around it. But you see players now move on from the golf park and move up.
Yes.
How are you doing?
To other clubs.
To other clubs.
The whole engagement we're having with the Ministry of Education and the KICD, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, should be a very big lever in that demystification, because then it means that we will have trainers that are able to train children to play golf in a primary school in Mandera, in Garsen, in Migori, in places that you have entire counties that don't have a golf course. So when you get people engaged and involved in the game at that level, then as they grow up, as they get to secondary school, as they get to university or tertiary colleges, then they can mix with other people who've been playing or find places that already have golf courses and see how they can take their game to that level.
And as part of these efforts, I think when you share a club with him, Lucas Maranga, when he was chairman, he got into a project where he would go around and tell people that you have got these golf kits that you are not using, donate them and have them go around the places where you've got the clubs, and the youngsters can come into it. How's that project going on, and what's the real, what more call would you make for this?
So that actually continues very, very well. I'm sure you've covered in recent past the engagements we've had with organizations like the DP World Tour.
Yes.
That have donated golf balls, have donated equipment that goes to Junior Golf Foundation. So the initiatives that Lucas began have been carried on by JGF, and I must applaud the JGF team that have continued to ensure that things like availability of clubs and golf balls do not become an impediment for young children who want to learn how to play. So between that and the junior coaches that we spoke about earlier, it's now allowing people from disadvantaged backgrounds to get into the game. We have projects for even children with disabilities. There's a very impressive project that's being run by a lady in Nakuru called Nancy Steinman, who's also been involved in golf administration for a while. And she not only trains juniors, she's actually the Junior Golf Foundation trustee for that region, but has gone an extra step to ensure that she makes facilities available and equipment available for kids that are hard of hearing. You know, because again, talent comes from anywhere. You know, one of our top amateur golfers is Isaac Makoha, who earned a bronze medal in the Deaf Olympics last year but won. So the more we open this thing up to people from different backgrounds, the more we demystify the sport and the better the talent that we are able to build.
Actually, disability golf is something that we saw at the Magical Kenya Open. What impetus did it give to you, not just for those who may, you know, have different, you know, disabilities, maybe intellectual, maybe hard of hearing, but also somebody who may have lost a limb but still wants to play the game?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you point that out. Yes, at the beginning of this year's Magical Kenya Open, that week on the Monday and Tuesday, we had what's called G4D, Golf for the Disabled. And it's something that the DP World Tour is running in some of the key DP World Tour events. But beyond that, because that is essentially golfers with disabilities at pro level, at a local level, we have actually set up a committee within the union that focuses on golfers with disabilities. We are registering them because we want to know who they are. We are planning events that are specific for them. So that, again, they feel included and they're not always having to compete against able-bodied people, but we actually have events that are specifically designed for them to come together and to also encourage other people that might have disabilities to tell them, hey, the fact that you're probably challenged physically or mentally or visually doesn't mean that you can't play this game. So that has been a really positive thing for the game, and we are seeing a lot of interest in that.
Oh, very interesting. Well, it's good that at the highest level, outside of what we would say athletics and boxing, it is golf that has earned us another podium place at a global competition. And we'd like to see more of that. A parting shot for those who are in golf and how they can make more, join the sport and go have a good swing on the course.
Well, the best point to start is with the youngsters. Let's get kids exposed to the game. Let's find ways to have them enjoy the sport. We find that, and this is again a global phenomenon, the younger generation, the Gen Zs of this world, don't have the patience to go to a golf course and play a round of golf for 4 or 5 hours. So a lot of new formats of golf are coming up, but that's why I also said, if you just have a golf range, you will have instances where people you can spend 30 minutes and go and hit golf balls. One of the biggest global phenomenon right now is something called Topgolf. So you'll find Topgolf outlets. There are over 50 of them across the world. And what Topgolf is actually just a fun golf range. So they have food, they have music, they have nice, interesting colors, and it becomes a place just for youngsters to go hit golf balls, enjoy themselves. So the more we get younger people involved and engaged in new formats, short formats, 6-hole golf, 9-hole golf, the easier it will be for us to get new people into the sport.
Well, quite interesting, because I know also virtual golf was something that really took up during the pandemic. But we know, at least for some, they say, let the always remain, but the exciting formats are always there. David, thank you very much. We'll be keeping in communication as we take a look at the next 1 year, the transition of golf through Golf Kenya as it is consolidated. And also, remember that we also expect the national team to be very competitive, say from September onwards. So we'll be keeping tabs on them and see how they do perform. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, and the FA Cup took place over the weekend, and for a majority of the people, one team had been written off, Manchester United, but they went on to win the trophy with a victory of 2-1 against Manchester City at the Wembley Stadium. Let's get to watch those highlights.
Good.
That's long towards Garnacho, trying to chase in behind. Guardiola with the error. Garnacho! To give Manchester United the lead in the cup final. Nightmarish bit of defending here from Manchester City, who've started sluggishly and have paid the price. He's just onside. Garnacho chased it willingly and got the reward. Ortega and Guardiola miscommunicated. And what a moment this is for Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. They have the advantage. Simple as you like when you see it from that angle. City looking for a response here. Rodri for De Bruyne. It breaks down. Now Bruno Fernandes. Here's Rashford. Oh, fantastic, confident pass for Garnacho. United in the mood again here. Bruno for Mainu for 2-0. It is just remarkable. Mainu starts it here and he keeps running. But what about the assist here from Bruno Fernandes? Look at that for a pass, perfectly weighted and superbly finished. Almost casual the way he strokes this home. Purpose and precision for 2-0. And about challenging again. Here's Foden now. And City just starting to wake up. Doku. And now Haaland! A whisker away. So close. On another day, it flies in. Here's Doku, who's come on and changed the game. Now Walker to strike one. Oh, Anana's made a wonderful save. It's a sweet hit, and this is almost beyond him. Here's Rodri. Now Foden has been so quiet, but picks out Alvarez here. Onana punching the air as he narrowed the angle. But Alvarez should score. It has been all Manchester City in this second half, as we might have expected. Now Garnacho. Garnacho wants to run at them and keeps going. Ortega with a stop at his near post, really, to keep City in the game. Here's Walker to strike another one. Onana with the save. This time down low. Strong right hand this time. It's another really good stop. Starting to run out of time now, Manchester City. Doku. Can he make something happen? Doku to strike! Inside the near post, Onana beaten. They still have hope. 3 minutes of normal time remaining. Finally, they find a way through. The substitute Doku's been their best player. United win it by 2-1. Everyone expected it to be City's day, but it's Manchester United's day at Wembley. Sheer joy for Erik ten Hag and his team.
And the highlights of the English FA Cup final played on Saturday between Manchester United and Manchester City. Manchester United winning it by 2-1. We continue with our conversation around sport, and this time round, let's talk to the ace, Linus Machete. He's the head coach of the wrestling team, a sport that, unlike what you see, like the WWE and things like that, this is a different format that is in essence a very safe sport. Let's hear his story.
That's Linus Masheti. He's a well-known wrestling coach, but I've just intercepted him before he goes for training with the wrestling team. Linus, you can come because we also want to tell your story today. So introduce yourself, tell us who you are and how long you've been doing this.
Thank you so much. Okay, my fellow Kenyans, my name's Linus Masheti, national head coach, Kenya team, and also a former wrestler. You know, at our home, we have that tradition wrestling. So that's what inspired me. There was a time I saw somebody won and he was given a sheep, you see? This really inspired me. And this is when I joined wrestling. I started wrestling in 1987 with the All African Games here in Kenya. Then after that, in 1988, I was among the top wrestlers who qualified for Seoul Olympic Games. After that, I went for World Championships. This was in Portugal. After the World Championship, this was in 1990, whereby I went for training, 6 months training in London. We were training for the 5th All African Games. But in 1990, I had won a silver medal in the African Championship, which was done here in Nairobi. Then I was sent to London for 6 months training, whereby I proceeded to Cairo, Egypt, for the All African Games, 5th All African Games. Apart from winning all the league matches here in Kenya, by that time I was wrestling in 82 kilograms. So I was the champion overall. Okay, in 1991 Cairo Games, I won a bronze medal, 4th bronze, whereby I did not end up there. I kept on training. After the All African Games, wrestling team was not among the Commonwealth Games that were held in Australia, Sydney. So we were just here, we did not go anywhere. 1993, I went for African Championship in South Africa. I also won 4th position, whereby my fellow Kenyan won the weight. This was Mr. Richard Tanui. In 1994, I went for the Commonwealth Games in Canada. In Canada, I did not do well because I was ranked 8th in my weight category, 82 kilograms. 1995, I went for 6th All African Games in Zimbabwe. I was 4th. Then after Zimbabwe, I was sent to Moscow, Russia, further training. I trained in Russia for 1 full year until 1986, where I went to qualify in Tunisia for Atlanta Olympic Games. Okay, I did not do well. Then in 1987, I had a 1 full rest. This was due to injury. Then in 1988, I started my training. After that, we went for All African Games in South Africa. After the All African Games in South Africa, I remember also we went for the World Championships. This was in Bulgaria. Still, I didn't perform because this time, due to injury, I did not perform well. So this time, I decided now I can now retire in the games because right now I have participated in 6 All African Games, 6 Commonwealth Games, 2 World Championships and 1 Olympic. Now I decided to rest and start coaching. So I also went back to Moscow, whereby I went to train as a coach. So I've been a coach since then. In my coaching career, I've seen a lot of good results, especially when I went to for coaching in Russia. Because when I can tell you that Kenya got medals during the All African Games, the last medals during the 1995 All African Games in Zimbabwe. This when we got a silver. Since then, we have never got any medal. Until recently, we have now been getting medals from the African Championships. Just recently, we had a silver and a bronze in the beach games. And from there, we have been attending more African Championships, coming home with the silvers and bronze medals. And this, according to my career as a coach, I think we are now performing. We are now on the right track as before. The only problem I'm facing now is training facilities, because wrestling facilities are not found here locally. All the time we have to, either we borrow or either we go for further training. And it has been very long since we went for abroad training, but if we get all the facilities here in Kenya, I think we can perform. Because right now there is no new techniques in this world of wrestling. We are now the coaches and we know the techniques. Only that the facilities which are found here, you find that you have to pay for you to train. That's the only challenges I'm facing. But I know that in future, we are going far. So I think with these young boys and girls, we will do something, and very soon. In wrestling, to qualify to Olympic Games nowadays, you have to get a gold or a silver in Africa. In every weight category, they only took a gold and a silver medalist to the Olympic Games. And I'm sure I'll make it. Okay, right now we have players like John Omondi, who is a silver medalist in Africa. We have Madaya Mahabila, who is a bronze medalist in Africa. We have like Moseti. There is a guy, Daniel Moseti. He's a silver medalist in Africa. We have Mark Omasaba, who is also a silver medalist in Africa. We have these girls here, Emma. She is a bronze medalist in Africa. Also the other one, Mburu, who is also a bronze medalist. We also have, there is a guy by the name Gilbert, who is also a bronze medal. So I can see we have that potential. When I'm not in wrestling, I am a choir member. You see, I like singing. So not only singing, but this gospel music. And also, I am a very good father. I'm working in the prisons department, and that's my employer. I want to thank my employer because all this time I have been getting support from them. They have been supporting me in my training. All the time I need to go out for training. There's no supervision, and this is the right time to thank them, because in other words, I've been going through ranks, and right now I'm happy that I am a senior sergeant in the Department of Prisons, and I'm happy. Let me say this: wrestling is part of self-defense. To tell you the truth, because nowadays, if you don't have any defense, so wrestling, I can take it as a self-defense, apart from being a sport. And this is a very old sport, because even in the Bible, you had when Jacob was wrestling with an angel. Those are centuries back. So wrestling also, it was used in the in Asian army as a fighting weapon. But this time we have modified. It's now an Olympic sport, which is very nice, very enjoyable. Apart from the normal wrestling we always see in the TV, those are professional wrestling. But this ours is an amateur wrestling, Olympic sport, very nice. And when you can even just enjoy when you wrestle. Mungu, Mungu, nitakutukuza milele. Nafsi yangu inakutamani, nafsi yangu inakutamani sana. Mungu, Mungu wangu, nitakutafuta milele.
Endelea.
Nafsi yangu inakutakasa sana. Wewe ni Mungu, wewe ni Bwana, wewe ni mwema, utabaki Mungu milele. Na wewe ni Mungu, wewe Bwana, wewe ni mwema, utabaki Mungu milele.
Bas, umesikia, utabaki Mungu milele. That's how you say Jacob fought with the angel.
Yes.
And he was able to join wrestling. Yes. And he's also a Christian, a staunch one, and a Catholic, my fellow Catholic. Remember?
Thank you so
yes,
much.
so
Thank
ubarikiwe sana, continue doing the work that you are doing.
Thank you.
And now we'll let you go because you are going to train with the national team.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sasa piga firimbi ndo ajue umefika.
Okay. Bye bye.
So the depth of our colleagues, one can be a music conductor and not just an editor and producer on the sports desk. Well, that is the story of Linus Machete, who has brought glory to Kenya as a wrestler and now coaches their national team. And remember, you'd see them at the African Games, you would see them at the Commonwealth Games, and also whenever they're trying to make their way up the Olympics. That's Greco-Roman wrestling, not what you see on TV that has got all some, kicking and punching, and also people doing gymnastics. But this is trying to pin your opponent onto the ground. Well, talking about aces, let's talk about another one. Anthony Mathenge, who is the coach of Team Kenya Table Tennis. He's coached this side, and he's another Kenyan legend of sport.
When Ivor Motangu founded table tennis in 1900s, he never knew it would spread its wings to Kenya and make a big impact on people's lives, including Anthony Mathenge, who rose through the ranks to become Kenya One in his heydays.
I started playing table tennis way back from competitive table tennis, way back from 1991, when I joined the former Kenya Post and Telecommunication. They employed me through sports. You see, those days, you are employed through talent, not like nowadays. The youth are a bit idle. They don't consider talent so much. So most of them are unemployed. In our days, we used to be employed through sports. I joined Post KPTC. From KPTC, I started playing for Telcom after they separated from Postal. From Telcom, then I joined Postal, PCK, up to date.
He was lucky to find his bearing thanks to his sporting family, who inculcated him the value of sports. His neighborhood also played a big role in enacting the same.
Where I used to go to church, the local priest used to promote table tennis so much. That's how I got into table tennis. At first I used to play table tennis for fun, but I realized I had talent. I played table tennis seriously, and then I was poached by BAT. BAT was my neighborhood, BAT club. They poached me. I started playing for BAT for around 3 years. From BAT, I was poached again by KPA. From KPA, I came, due to weather problems, weather conditions in Mombasa, I came back to Nairobi, I got employed with KPTC.
Sports also opens other doors other than life skills, and that's how Madenge also found his way to employment.
I came to like this sport because I didn't know I had talent. It's like I had talent. I performed well from the juniors to senior event. From 1991, when I was in KPTC, I managed to join the national team for around 4 years. For around 4 years, I played for the national team. From 1998, 97, 98, I got into coaching. That's how I started coaching the junior schools, the secondary schools, and the clubs.
He became the undisputed champion of table tennis to represent Kenya in various international events.
I've represented the country in all Africa Games. I remember in 2003, we reached semi-finals in Abuja, Nigeria. Semi-finals. In fact, we were number 3, 2003. I remember I represented the country again 2006, Melbourne, Australia. After Melbourne, in Australia, it was Commonwealth Games. We didn't perform well, exposure. I remember we represented Kenya again in Congo, Brazzaville, in all Africa Games. We performed well. All Africa, we performed well. But due to some technicalities, again, we lost because of exposure. Exposure, it really counts. I've played in more All Africa Games, Commonwealth Games. The only event I've not participated in is Olympics.
But he also had an opponent who gave him his fiercest challenge, and breaking him was a nightmare.
I remember there's a time I played against Kenya's, by then, Kenya's top player, Fat Daim. He was exposed in terms of playing. He really beat me. I couldn't understand how, but through exposure, he beat me. And then I remember another time I played outside. I played against a UK player. He really frustrated me because of services. I was not exposed. I couldn't receive the services. But now, even if I've stopped playing, I know this is a chop, this is a floater, this is a long ball. I can do anything. You see, by playing table tennis, now you are coaching. I think you keep learning how to play. Every day is a learning process. I'm more experienced now.
There comes a time when one has to give way to upcoming players, and that is what he did to become their mentor and coach.
Table tennis, I can say table tennis is being played by my children. I have 2 sons and 1 daughter. They play table tennis. They are members here. I can rank them. They are okay. They are not accomplished players, but they really enjoy playing table tennis. They have the bats. They know tournaments are coming. They are ready to participate. They participated in the trials here, but they never performed well. So I keep encouraging them to play table tennis. They really follow me.
He urges the current generation to make use of the exposure they are being given to up their game.
I really encourage Kenyans to take table tennis as a sport. Through sports, you can get employment. Through sports, you avoid so many diseases. So keep playing table tennis to chase a table.
Madenge also calls upon the government to ensure they provide more facilities so that table tennis, which is mostly played in private clubs, can be accessible to more people who can't afford such facilities.
Table tennis has a good future. I've challenged the county government. I've challenged the government. They should chip in. We should work in partnership to bring indoor games up. I can say we can go a long way if we support our youngsters from the village level primary, secondary to university level. They want to play. But now they must be able to hire even good coaches, not quacks. Hire good coaches and then they will deliver. We have so many coaches, but most of them are not up to standard. We should do something. Get standard coaches, get venues, set up academies, then we'll deliver. Players will come up and they'll perform. Just like athletics. I'm just giving you an example. From the village level up to university level to military. So you see they are performing. So we should do something with the county level and the government.
Anthony Mathenge, who looks forward to table tennis academies sprouting out in the country, in the meantime continues to groom more talent, hoping that they will one day make it to the Olympics and realize their dreams.
And that's the story of Anthony Mathenge, a legend of Kenyan table tennis, wrapping up this session on the Ace. Well, as we wrap up the program, just to keep you an update of what to look out for as far as the news is concerned. And let's start with the last mile connectivity contract signing that's happening at State House, Nairobi at 4 p.m. That is an event where KBC is going to cover. So we shall be keeping our eyes on that event because we know it comes immediately after the African Development Bank host country event. And this event that is going to be live on KBC channel 1:30 p.m. has been themed Human Capital for Sustainable Growth and Development in Africa, Demographic Dividend and Circular Movement of Skilled Labor. This is a focus on housing, and we know that there is a lot of push when it comes to the affordable housing program in the country. And also happening today, and also at the Bomas of Kenya right now, is that we've got the launch of the new brand elements for the National Housing Corporation and also the presentation of the financial year 2023-2027 strategic plan. It's happening at the Bomas of Kenya, and it is graced by the President, Chief of Staff and Head of the Public Service, Mr. Felix Koskei, and also graced by the Cabinet Secretary for Land and Housing, the Honorable Alice Wahome. Also happening today is that we've got expecting O'Brien Kimani to be speaking with Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who is the president of the African Development Bank Group. Remember that they are having their annual meetings in Nairobi today, this week. So starting today, and it runs until Friday. So 1 week of conferencing all about development of the continent is what we're going to be having here. And also happening now, we know that last evening there was a match between Kenya Police FC and AFC Leopards in the Mozart Bet Cup semi-final that had to be stopped after 1 hour of play. And this was due to an injury sustained by a match official after a projectile was hurled onto the playing surface. So that was not acceptable. The good thing is there was no crowd trouble, and so the Leagues and Competitions Committee of the Football Kenya Federation decided that that match be played for the final half an hour, and that match has kicked off. And so we've seen that and playing at the moment, 78 minutes played, Kenya Police still leading AFC Leopards by a 1-0 for the right to face KCB in the final of the Mozart Bet Cup. So we'll be giving you that in our news later, and also keeping up with what's happening in the world of volleyball. We've got the KVF playoffs, and this is the quarterfinal phase. It's a best-of-3 series, moving on to the semis, and also the World Boxing Qualification Series that's taking place in Bangkok, Thailand. So that's our news outlook for this day. Well, that's it from me, Daniel Wahome, this morning. And coming up next is Kurunzi Mashinani with Kasichana Betsa, and also the Swahili interview program, Tamrini. That's coming up after we get this feature from Dosha Vela. My name is Daniel Wahome. Our sign language interpreter has been Lensa Odingo. Have a good day.
I think we would all agree that food is good, right? It's a great source of energy and a great source of nutrients. But what happens when we take more than our body needs, or we constantly make unhealthy choices over time. One very obvious complication is that we gain weight.
My baby daddy, we got broke up because he started complaining, you are becoming too fat, you are becoming too big. So he went into another woman, leaving me with a child.
Hello and welcome once again to our Healthy Me No Cap safe space. And with me I have Perpetual, who is a wonderful dancer, by the way. I'm green with envy. We'll talk about that. And so let's go straight into it. When did you first notice that you had a problem with your weight?
I have been a plus size since birth. As I was growing, it kept becoming bigger and bigger.
At what point did you realize this needs to be taken care of?
Intake of food, or apparently I don't have any mind about that, because I think day in, day out, I just get bigger. People normally body shame plus size people. Most people